Hey everybody, so on this video I'm going to show you more about the performance matrix page in Cello Ibrida. If you want to know more about in general about this sample library, head over to pulsesetter.com, and we have a lot of videos showing the sounds and what else it can do. So focusing more on the performance matrix, which is has to be one of the most advanced GUIs out there, outside of the granular world. Those are a little bit more complex, but it's basically a kind of like a mastering effects chain, and you can send via two macros or envelopes or the velocity. You can send different amount of signals to different effects, and a midi chord changer, so you can change kind of chord in real time. And detuner, is kind of like synthesizers. So you copy the same voice or the same sound several times, and you detune each voice a little bit and spread it so it's kind of like a chorus basically. Okay, so let me start off with this sound just to have something. So it's kind of like a dual layer spiccato ostinato thing. Just one note. Okay, so the idea of the performance matrix is to be able to sort of like modulate a sound. So you have a couple different options to get the sound changing over time, and that way it doesn't sound static, either for sequencing like this, or a pad, or even short notes. So we have the option of LFOs, one LFO per layer. So that's one way to kind of modulate the sound. But then each layer has its own effects change. These are not related to the performance matrix, so it's its own standalone layers. And within each layer, you have filter, distortion, and lo-fi can be step sequence. So it's an extra step of a way of enabling more sound design per layer. And then the matrix, on top of all that, kind of both sounds can be sent to the matrix. So they're always on. That's one thing you have to know. So you can turn it always on, and you send. And this, they work like a send for different for specific parameters. So convolution would be kind of the dry, wet control, the amount for the chord, and so on. So so I start off with this example, right? So just keep it simple first. It's very simple. So you're just gonna go with macro, and if you haven't seen the other videos, it's basically this big macro. Sorry, this macro knob is the big one here in the front, and you can program it to be CC1 or 11 or whatever you want. That way, if you have different controllers, you can kind of helps out in the whole performance matrix, like the performance aspect of it, just modulating a sound in real time if you assign it to different CC parameters. So macro 2 is just this knob here. It doesn't appear anywhere else. It's just this knob 2. And same reasoning. You assign it to midi CC2 or CC11 or a different one. That way you can either change it to, that's an example, just going to give it here to distortion. Right, and then on macro 1, we're just going to create this sort of band pass filter, because I'm using low pass and high pass, creates a band pass. Convolution, I already have something, so yeah, let's do that. In chord, let's create, sorry, the wrong one here. So 100%, and then detune, we're just gonna change it. It's on default, it's very low parameters. Sorry, low intensity, I guess, because detune multiplies each voice or each sound several times, and here's 7 times, and it detunes it and spreads it. So the send to the blend. So again, I have it in CC1. So you see the detune went a little bit out of control. So let's do half, somewhere like 60. And yep, you can assign for each send, you can also assign it to a specific MIDI controller. So these are knobs, if you haven't noticed. But they just are numbers right now. Okay, so let's take out macro control 1. And so this is the so as musicians, we're always usually, thinking about theory, chord progressions, melody, but for sound manipulation, it's a lot about changing the sound quality of a sound to give the aspect of performance or composition or sort of movement, and also to create an emotional context within the sound. So, for example, we already have the established spiccato ostinato. So let's go. Okay, so that explains a little bit how the send of macro 1 is affecting 2 filters, 1 distortion, reverb, and chord and detune multipliers. And watch out with the chord and detune, because the CPU gets a little bit hard, high up there. Just for example purposes, so we're putting it really high. Okay, so again, so now you have the 2 layers of these are processed spiccato multisamples. So these sound like this. They're very velocity sensitive. Because we ran each sample through a cassette tape and Eurorack. So a kind of gritty, lo-fi sound. And I guess we'll do something with the real samples one day. It's not our style to do like normal orchestral sample libraries, but I guess we should one day. It's, we have Gabriel Di Marco, who scores for he works for he did Walking Dead and other stuff for Bear McGrady, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., 10 Cloverfield Lane. Yeah, he does like a ton of stuff, and you can contact this dude, right? So just Google Gabriel Di Marco and just send him an email and say like, hey, can you record on top of your composition? And he'll be like, sure. And you'll have like that sound. So he's very nice guy. Anyways, this is not the original sound. This is processed, but just for example purposes. So now we have a couple of things modulating that sound. So I'm pressing. So it's detuning here. LFO, it's detuning. It's already one aspect of changing the sound in time. And then the other LFO, the same thing. So if I exaggerate it, so just a little bit, just to give it some sort of movement, and then, you know, within the performance matrix, so now we're gonna focus on the envelope sequencers. So they're they're kind of like a LFO, but a lot more advanced. So it sequences kind of the effect that go into the chord, for example. So let's put a little bit more distortion so you can hear it better. So that's, you know, a lot more noticeable. So the second envelope, on the other hand, could be, you know, something a little bit more crazy. Let's go to this affects the. So already your simple obstinato started to get a little bit more out there. So let's go with I think they're pan. Yeah, so one is pan to the right, the other one to the left. So let's go with the layer 2 and do a like effect sequencer. Hopefully that explains a little bit what's happening in the performance matrix and how it's affecting the sound. Let's give another example using, I'm going to reset everything. So another example using one of the more mundane patches. So So this is from cello section playing textural pad. Damn. So, and then we go into, let's grab something, maybe a pulsating. Yeah, that we have pulsating multisample, not a plug, a synth plug. Okay. And let's do chord and change a little bit of the velocity. Okay, give it some sort of rhythm. So now it creates sort of motion, give it some motion too. And let's do a little bit more motion to it and do a filter, low pass filter, which is not the same as this one. So it's slowly, it's changing the filter. And we can do the same, but with volume to this one. Change it to triangle. So now we have what normal average Kontakt GUI can do. It's got a dual layer, some effects. But here, once we go into the performance matrix, we can do something that the motion will keep on going and won't feel like it's steady. I guess it's just staying stuck in that same loop. So we can do something like this over time to change the chord. And then let's do the detune. Hardcore, so it could be heard, but this time around we can do a slower rate. So for the macro knob, if you want to enhance sort of what's happening here, let's go that, maybe give it a little bit more movement to that bass pulse. So I'm just gonna go to the sequencer and kind of do something. And amp. There are different areas to gain stage each part of the signal. So wet, dry for amp, and give it some. Different. I'm just trying to go through a few parameters to change it so it'll give more rhythmic, I guess, going forward. Let's go faster. Actually, let's create like a pulse. That'll be cooler. Let's work on this side first. Oh, very cool. So now create it with the textural, this sort of pulse, and mixing it with so now you see the opportunities that this brings to a scene where you have first, where you can just stay slow, low intensity first, and then slowly introduce the bass. Which will be slowly going into chord and detune into different envelopes. And then for macro 2, let's go with so you can assign it to MIDI 2, and if there's anything that's on screen that it's a little bit kind of gory or just tension. That's a very bold choice, by the way. Low, that's a lot of attention to that effect. So let's go to okay, so it gets crazy. Okay, so I guess we assign a lot of parameters already. Maybe more reverb, or let's go with something a little bit more crazy. Okay, so again, you know, we were able to get a regular textural cello section. You killed the cello section there. An amazing cello performance just went on to be just a undulating pad. And then slowly bring in the bass. And then you wait for the sequencers to go through chord and detune. So maybe you want something else. Let's see what we can do with randomize. So let's reset again. Let's see another example, just using kind of pads. Wash pads are I swear there's one sorry, my mouse. Some wash pad that's washiness. Size, more wet, less dry. And then one of these, let's see which one we can do. Just start off with the main page to choose and the sounds and get some sort of movement. And there's an LFO, so let's go. It's kind of cool. Very ambiency. So if I can go. Go a little bit crazy with layer 2. I'm starting to create this sort of tension-filled pattern or sound. Let's go to tune. Seems like that's the best choice. Somehow layer 1 is a lot more prominent. Roughness of this layer. So now it's gonna go with, let's go to, this is getting tensiony, diminished 9 chord. 7 voices, very detuned. So with envelope 1, do one thing, and envelope 2, another thing. Retrigger means that it's just gonna loop. And envelope 2 is, okay, there we go. Oh, I didn't do anything here. So let's go here first, up and then down. So I just want to create a. This is the other trick for macro too. I don't know if I mentioned yet, but so you have 2 macros to affect the signal. If you have 2 CC parameters or CC controllers that you want to change 2 different signals, but you can also use macro 2 as sort of mastering sort of effect. So you just hit convolution and do some sort of, let's go to rhythmic. Let's go to rhythmic ones. So, right, so you just assign, give it like a send a little bit, not that much. So it's always going to be there now, and you just leave it alone. You can enhance the sound also. But macro 1 would be the first choice for changing more the sound. So if you want to go and you don't want to wait for the envelopes, you just hit it in real time. I went a little bit too far, so let's lower a few things. I'll give it more cinematic, like big. So very cool, very unique. Well, it's already released. If not, I would have given you. I would have saved that because I'm loving it. So let's go. Maybe with. See if I can work with short notes. Well, this is engine kind of. It's more of kind of for longer evolving things. We might have another engine for shorter notes, but we still have plugs. Which are short and also owie. Plus very crazy pre-made loops. Let's go back to the plugs. So I'm gonna be playing them. Just to give it a little bit more life. Just gonna do low pass filter. It's not the same as this one, by the way. So found some sort of just mix it up a bit with another one. Let's see how it goes. It's loud. I don't know if you can see that my chords being played. So kind of how Herbie Hancock? I don't know. What's the other guy? Miles Davis. About the roads. It's like, don't play so many notes, stupid. So yeah, so it's not an instrument to do it. Yeah, but for like sci-fi, this is pretty cool. Let's give it a more cinematic feel. A lot of delay, of course, and ambiency. It's huge. Oh, I have it in both, that's right. So huge, kind of dampy. so we found this sort of organic, sort of mysterious now let's go to the performance matrix and see what we can do. So first, my favorite is the chord. Go to CC1. And kind of band pass it a little bit. Turn it on, always forget. Okay, so now let's give it some sort of movement. So the envelope sequencers, maybe we can do something that's a little bit different. Just try out a few things. So spread. So instead of having this long sequence, let's give it very short steps. And it doesn't. How many steps are this? 4, 6, 4. Let's go with 4. See if this works. So nothing first, nothing later, and then. Oh, right. Oh, I have to sync it. Not getting a huge difference, so I think it has to do with. Yeah, because you know it's a short note. Oh, I have it in retrigger. So effects kind of disappears. Let's see. Now let's go with less steps. Sometimes it's better to just. Crazy lo-fi, retrigger sync very fucking fast, and then just on and off. Let's change a little bit the sample. Using a ton of delay, so let's go feedback a little bit less. Oh, and I guess we haven't touched this yet. So velocity is subtle, I think it's better. That sort of Hans Zimmer starting every cue, it's like, what is that menacing thing? Yeah. What is that? What is that coming? And then I cannot hear the dialogue anymore. Okay, so every Christopher Nolan film. Okay, so for now, oh, maybe just go with sort of these. So we just change. So I just changed the sound source. Those are not as loud as the other one. Oh, now you can do the ARPA's thingy and see if I come up with a cool pattern. Steps and do something that actually changes. Went too far. Oh, it's going really fast. Let's take out sync. Okay. Let's go with, okay, let's reset it again and just work with simple pads. So now, I guess, take advantage of the macro assignments and do something that's distortion, delay, convolution in A. So now let's sound-wise change it to something that kind of moves. Okay, so give it a little bit. Okay, so hopefully that helps out a little bit more on how to use the performance matrix, how it can be used for sound design, compositional ideas, and just getting you by with a very modern sound based on cello and some synthesizers, of course, since you already saw. But that from there, it's such a pretty neat performance tool or sound manipulating tool. Plus the fact that you can assign different CC parameters to affect the effects, Oh, my accent. And then, you know, modulate also on the main page, the LFOs on real time, crossfade, plus have a whole set of unique effects for each layer. So it's a huge, very complex sound design tool that hopefully mixed with a real cello sound, that it's, nothing that's crazy except for the sound effects. I'll show you those, the sound sources. These are really out there, but or the scrapes from a very crappy cello. That sounds so cool. Sounds like a boat, like a sinking boat. And then the normal cello sounds from our friends who recorded the cello textures, and cello short notes, which are from Gabriel Di Marco, who, again, if I haven't mentioned it, Gabriel Di Marco, he does a cello for Bear McCready's tracks, for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Walking Dead, Cloverfield, I don't know, a bunch of movies. So it's just a Hollywood player that you can just email and be like, hey, here's a music sheet, can you play on top of my track? And he'll do it, and you'll get the cello player from Bear McCready doing your track. So it's an excellent opportunity to enhance your tracks beyond samples, right? And beyond having to hire full orchestra. Just a technique that I remember visiting Remote Control a long time ago, and that's what they did. They didn't record a whole orchestra for TV shows, and this was a while back, so I don't know if it's changed, but they hire like a small section, and just like 2 violins, 1 cello, and a bass, or something like that. I don't know. It was very small, and that's how they go over the samples, and it makes it sound so much nicer and cooler. But anyways, the topic of today was the performance matrix. And if you want to know more about the other videos, and it's like 200 patches that we made. It's so many fucking patches, and then 500 snapshots. So since they already have the setups for the performance matrix, all you have to do is just change one of the sounds, and it'll be like night and day to what was there before, and it's like a whole new sound that's probably no one else ever is gonna have. Probability is gonna be very low. Anyways, Pulsesetter.com. Hope you like it. We're gonna use this engine for a real real woodwinds, and also brass, and another one for full strings. But we're working on another project with full strings. That it's if you want to find a different type of company, different type of products, we are. I think we're out there. We saw orchestral sample libraries, so we're like, that's boring. Let's do something unique and weird. Recording a whole fucking orchestra. We recorded our orchestra just to do sound manipulations, and a cool sequencer, and this sort of engines where they're like, it takes the sound of these orchestral mundane sort of samples. Obviously we cannot use other companies' samples, so we had to record our own, and from there we just do our sound design and that sort of idea. So obviously we don't want to sell the idea that this is an orchestral or fully orchestral thing, because that's not our thing, but at the same time we are recording really top musicians, still not as big as going into one of these Skywalker or whatever scoring stages, but still a whole orchestra just so we can have unique sound samples. I don't know this. If you're still listening to this, I applaud you and thank you very much. We're doing it just for you. Okay. Have a nice day and stay safe. It's 2020, so you never know what's coming next.